I will first of all say we don't have much time. And so I'll let you read my bio, which is attached in the materials if you want some more information about me. But I am a communications consultant for attorneys. I am a lawyer, and I also was trained in the theater, and I have the great privilege of being able to merge those two loves of mine, the law and the theater, so that I can help attorneys become better communicators. When I was asked to participate in this webinar series, and I was asked to teach oral communication in cyberspace, it's quite a challenge because oral communication is very personal. And it's personal because we learn to speak and communicate and learn nonverbal communication from such a young age. Habits are formed so that when you start to critique and improve those habits, it's quite a journey. And it's hard to do when you're not with the person across the table. So I picked these top 10 communication items because I wanted to make sure we could achieve a learning system over cyberspace. So they may not be the things I would meet with you one-on-one and go over because I can't see you and I can't hear you in the webinar. So there are things that I hope you can take out of this overview that you can put into practice right away. I'm hoping it's practical, and I hope that you enjoy the next 60 minutes. Practicing your starter lines. So some people don't know how to just kind of jump in and engage with people, especially if in a meeting or on a phone call, you have different varied levels of attorneys. You might have partners that are very high up on the food chain, and you might have first-year associates. And oftentimes, knowing how to engage and what are the social mores around the small talk is important. And that means you've got to figure out what the starter lines are. How do you introduce yourself? How do you start a conversation? How do you rope it back into business? How do you make sure that your starter lines aren't offensive or butting in, that they're not interrupting? So I've put some ideas on that small talk tip sheet, and it's something that you should look at and reflect on yourself and say, what do I do well and what do I need some work on? Creating a story toolbox. So let's say we get into the moment of small talk where we're past the weather, we're past the hellos, and now you're exchanging stories. Oftentimes people say, I just sit like a bump on a log and I don't talk. Once people start talking, I don't know what to add. So this is where you might need to practice a story toolbox. Figuring out what are some fun stories, interesting, helping you highlight what you'd like to specialize in, either as an attorney or how you'd like to be known in practice, and making sure that you finesse those, keeping them light, not too serious, something that blends into the small talk of conversation. In conversations, be the initiator. One of the things I try to convince attorneys, that if you're one of those personalities that kind of starts out down here and eventually you take off and now you're at high altitude, you're going to have to work harder at being more generous with the audience from the get-go. And small talk is one of those great ways to practice this. If you can begin an engagement, a small talk conversation, by being the initiator, making it easier for the other person, having that charity and that eye for being generous with yourself, it's going to make people like you. And achieving that likability factor is huge. We, as attorneys, suffer from so many bad jokes about us. And it's important that we achieve that likability factor. And part of that is being generous with the audience. And that means in conversations, be that initiator. Look for someone who looks uncomfortable in the room. Make sure you're engaging someone on a conference call who doesn't know what to say, doesn't know how to speak, and you're helping them do that. Obviously, the partners, you have counsels, those in the office that are higher up on the levels, they need to be the ones that help associates learn how to do that well. So being the initiator is key, and it goes along hand with being generous. Balancing the talk time. No one likes a me monster. Everyone likes to feel like they participated and contributed to a conversation. So make sure you're asking questions, but you're also responding. Make sure that you're not someone who lobs out a question and then lets the other person monologue for 30 minutes. You want to make sure that that talk time is balanced. Moving on to 6 through 10, which again, that small tip sheet has more expanded things than what you're seeing on this slide. Ask for advice and invite discussion. So research the people you're going to be meeting with. Find out what their expertise are. Find out through social interactions what their interests are, and then you can ask for advice in that area. Discussions happen because you want to know the person better. And sometimes it requires a little work on your part in order to figure out what the person does for a living, what their interests are, and what their personal interests are. So are they sailors? Do they have kids? What do they like to do in their free time? So all of that is part of the background work that goes into being good at small talk. Deliver authentic compliments. This is a really hard thing to teach, but if you can get it in your small talk tips, personal goals, never deliver a compliment unless it's authentic. It's always transparent if you deliver something that's not authentic and seems fake, and it will reflect poorly on you. So make sure anything you do that's complimentary to anyone that you're talking to has something that's authentic about it.